Is it true that if I get a boner, I could actually have a spinal injury? Can an erection reveal this hidden body injury? The strangest new way to potentially lose weight? And is breast milk the latest health trend? Today, we're diving into some of the strangest, most uncomfortable, and surprisingly real medical questions pulled straight from the internet. All right, let's dive right in. If you tasted someone's urine, hypothetically, of course, could you tell if they had diabetes? Weirdly, yes, historically, that's actually what they used to call doctors did. They would actually taste someone's urine if they suspected some abnormality, and it would have a potential sweet taste to it. And it went back for centuries. And then they also noticed, like, if somebody's urine was out, sometimes ants would go to one urine over another, and that was related to the amount of sugars that were in the urine. But please don't drink urine just to test to see if there's glucose in it. Do people's eyes turn gray before they die? My friend's grandmother's eyes did this before she died. Yes, your eye color and the eyes do change near death and through that death experience. It's due to what's happening in the body. So you're having decreased circulation, decreased blood flow. And so what ends up happening is the clear part of the eye, which is your cornea, actually can become more like hazy or pale in color. And then when somebody dies too, you might actually have some more dilation of the eye. So in combination of all that, you can actually have darkening of the eyes, cloudiness of the eyes, and then with those color changes, the iris, which is the colored part of the eye, can actually look more grayish. If CTE comes from concussions, then why aren't soccer players offing themselves more often, considering soccer is responsible for more concussions than American football? Great question. CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And when we say the word encephalopathy, it's basically a generic word for brain swelling. Yes, soccer players do get head injuries. I've had 2 concussions myself. Concussions themselves don't increase your risk per se of CTE, but it has to do with the amount of repetitive damage to your brain. Think about a linebacker who's played a full career. They're always getting hit every single play in their head. It might not be a concussive type force every single time, but your brain continues to get rattled and rattled and rattled. And so the chronic traumatic events over periods of time will potentially increase your risk. Researchers believe that repeated trauma to the head can actually increase the amount of protein in your tissue of the brain, and actually called the tau protein, and they find that it's more concentrated or more amounts of it in brain tissue. So those abnormal proteins interfere with how neurons function and communicate. Is it true that if I get a boner, I could actually have a spinal injury? Yes, surprisingly, that is true, but not as simple as that. Erections are controlled by multiple different pathways. Sometimes it's our own brains, versus there are just neurologic signals that are going, which then can control it as well. But what we do see is if somebody does have an erection after a traumatic event, then there could be a signal that they might have a spinal cord injury. And an erection that's unwanted and prolonged is something called priapism. And you can have a traumatic priapism when there is a spinal cord injury. If scientists can transplant poop to change someone's gut bacteria, could a skinny person technically donate their microbiome to help someone lose weight faster? Great question, and as ridiculous as it does sound, we already transfer people's poop for certain reasons. Not this yet. So we do a fecal transplant for individuals that are having issues relating to lack of bacteria in their gut. Typically, this occurs after they get an infection with something called C. diff. Now they're starting to have this research. Could we do the same transplant for somebody who's struggling a little bit and they can't fix it with dietary changes? That if they give somebody who's got a very robust gut bacteria, does it then change, say, their metabolism, their weight, all of these different things? Animal studies have shown that transfer of gut bacteria from a lean mouse into an overweight or obese mouse actually influenced weight gain patterns. Why every time I have sex, I get a UTI? Every time, no matter what I do. I'm assuming the person writing this is likely a female versus a male, because there is a difference, and there's a difference because of anatomy. This is actually quite common, especially, as I said, in women, because sex is mechanical and it actually pushes bacteria in the urethra. Women's anatomy, they have shorter urethras. So with the mechanical movement of intercourse, you're potentially pushing bacteria that might be normal around that area. So doctors typically would say urinate after, just to clear out the urethra, then maybe avoid irritating products. And then if you continue to have multiple UTIs or severe cases that are requiring antibiotics frequently, you need to see the doctor to maybe check your genetics, your anatomy. I've never broken a bone, knock on wood. Are some people's bones capable of never breaking? Not exactly incapable, but there are people absolutely who have more dense bone, but the bone strength is influenced by diet, age, hormones. People can have a varying degree of how dense or the strength of their body's bones are. It's hard to test for, you don't test for that. There's osteopetrosis, where people's bones are much more dense, actually called stone bones. Have you ever broken a bone in your body? Let me know in the comments. Why did my brain erase all my childhood memories? I swear I don't have any. Anyone else? Actually, that is extremely common, and there's actually real neuroscience behind this explanation, so it's really cool. It's called childhood amnesia. There's multiple reasons why. Basically, the first reason is that your long-term formation of memories is not actually happening. It's more developing at this time, having to do with your hippocampus and your frontal lobes. And then the other aspect is language development. So when you're infant to toddler, your language skills aren't good. You don't know the language itself, so then you can't actually categorize, store those memories, because you don't know actually what was kind of being said and the language of how to put it in your brain. But there could also be severe trauma, stress, or emotional events that actually prevent the formation of memories, or the suppression of memories as well, not allowing you to recall what happened when you were younger. Is there a medical explanation for seeing auras? I can see colors around people for real. And no, I don't have a head injury. So yeah, possibly. The brain is constantly getting information, taking in lots and lots and massive amounts of visual stimuli. And so some people experience unusual sensory phenomenon, which is called synesthesia. So it's basically where the brain almost cross connects the sensory pathways, makes it a little bit unusual, and it could be a possibility. People with this can associate colors with sounds, personalities, people, anything could be related to a color for these individuals. So it's really interesting. Sometimes I hear my name being called right as I'm falling asleep. Am I hallucinating or anything worse?
Hey, is there a butts here? See more butts?
Actually, surprisingly, this is common. It has to do with your brain's transition from a wakeful state to a sleep state. It's actually called a hypnagogic hallucination. Kind of like the hypnic jerk that we get where we feel like we're falling, but it's the same idea where we might hear or think that we're hearing our name or some other sound as we're transitioning. It's almost like our brain playing tricks on us. But historically, people would actually think that that was like a ghost or a demon or some sort of paranormal activity, but it's explained by this. I just learned there are actual different types of earwax, dry and wet. Are there other weird body traits humans are randomly born with like that? Yes, this one, the earwax, is actually genetically built into us, and it's actually the ABCC11 gene, but it's also connected to sweating and basically body smell and body odor. So typically people who have dry earwax also have less odors, specifically coming from their armpits. But there are tons of other genetic variants. Some people, for cilantro, may say it actually tastes like soap. Is it true that traces of drugs can stay in your hair for years? So if you want to know when someone last did drugs, test their hair? Kinda. It's not exactly the way they show it on TV or you see it in the media, but you can get metabolites of the drugs into the hair, but it typically is not forever, and you're not going to get an exact timing. But when they do test it, they're typically testing 90 days out, maybe an inch and a half of the hair. But for individuals that have longer hair, the question is, can it be preserved for a longer period of time? Maybe, but there are a lot of other factors. With blood banks, there are requirements to donate blood. Are there requirements to donate sperm to a sperm bank? I'm looking for a part-time job. Very funny, but yes, there are definitely requirements. And the requirements are surprisingly very stringent, very tough. They're looking at your health, infectious history, family history, genetics, the sperm itself, the motility, the volume, and your age also plays an effect. So yes, there are very stringent requirements, and I'm not sure how much volume they want, but they probably also want diversity in their donors for their clients versus somebody just giving them continuous amounts of donated sperm. I know babies drink breast milk, but is it bad for adults, or would that be considered healthy? For most healthy adults, breast milk is not inherently like dangerous or bad. If it's sourced appropriate and it's devoid of any diseases, sure, it's probably fine. But in general, the demand for milk as an adult is pretty low. Once we're outside of infancy, the adult doesn't necessarily need milk. And breast milk is optimized for an infant based on calories, the proteins, the sugars, the immune function and nutrients are all optimized for an infant, not an adult. And for anybody watching, do you have any thought-provoking questions or embarrassing medical questions that you'd like me to possibly tackle? Let me know in the comments. And if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more, definitely check out this playlist right here. Lots of great questions and info in there. And as always, do me a favor, please subscribe, turn on your bell notifications, and hit that like button for me. Thank you so much for watching, and stay healthy, my friends.